Hey folks, welcome back. I'm going to start a little bit more earnestly on this harmony today. I'm taking a break from the Epiphone Strat project. Not a long one, but it's frustrating me and I just want to decide what I'm going to do with that rising tongue situation that I have there. But the harmony is, it's crying out for some love. I've ordered some new parts. Got a set of, inexpensive new tuners for it, which that'll help, with that situation where I had a mismatched set of tuners. Got an actual metal jack plate for it because the plastic credit card thing or whatever it was is just not cutting it for me. I don't think I'm going to replace too much else on this guitar. I did get a new nut, which I'll show in a little bit. But let's complete the disassembly that I do to most guitars to clean them up in order to prepare for, my sort of restoration process. So let's get started. I'm going to start by removing some of the hardware that's on the body. That's, all of it's in the way of me doing anything serious with the paint. You'll see I've been doing some touch-ups, but I will explain those later in the video. So let's take out some strap buttons, let's take out a tremolo, just kind of general disassembly. I can already tell that these strap buttons are loose enough, they wiggle, but they're loose enough that I might want to dowel that hole and re-drill it, but we'll see. There's also no felt on these. I can tell somebody took it out or it fell out. The screws are just about stripped. So somebody been messing around here. Okay, let's do tremolo next. I don't know who built these harmony discoveries. I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. It looks Korean to me. Really hard to tell. It's solid wood. I do like that part. The tremolo is just kind of standard generic that I've seen before. The only thing special about this that I can tell so far, it does have a unique electronic situation, and I think I've determined recently that these are 2 volumes and that's a tone. This volume is for these 2 pickups, this volume is for the humbucker, and that's a tone pot in general. But there's some weird wiring in here that the output jack somehow connects straight to this humbucker, and I don't know why. But I'm going to figure that one out later. I may actually redo the wiring because I don't know if I like the possibility of 2 volumes, for that situation. We'll see. Okay, let's see what to do next. I want to get these knobs off, and they take a simple screwdriver. Just not that big. Dip into my other tools here. Let's see how quality or not quality these knobs are. Well, they're solid brass. That's good. Cool. I can't tell if that one has a set screw in it. Ugh. It's in there. Just doesn't look like the right one. Oh, it's cracked in half. Great. I need a set screw or a new knob. We'll see. Oh, look at that. It's not the same knob as the other ones. Alright, we have knob mismatch. Oh well. Bridge post's got to come out for polishing. What do I want to do about those pickups? Let's flip it over one more time. Well, here's what's going on in this cavity. I've got an output jack that's sort of floating around in here because I broke what I think was the ground off. I'm actually pretty positive of it. And I've got these 3 pots in here and 3 switches, and then here's my black humbucker wire and my 2 red single coil wires. I've got the ground coming in from the bridge that connects to all the pots and all the pickups, so that looks fine. The pickups hot wires are going to the switches, and they're only on one side of all 3 switches, so there's no coil tap on the humbucker. Then I've got this signal going from the switch on the single coil here and the switch on the single coil in the middle going to the first pot. And then I've got the signal from the 3rd switch going to the 2nd pot. And they're oriented in such a way that I think it has to be volume. And then there's what I think is a tone wire going to this pot here, so that's a tone pot with the cap. And then, yeah, I mean that's the basics of it. So there's only one tone, but the problem is, look at the way they wired this output jack. It's like not connecting to any of this stuff. So the output jack is hot wired to this extra wire, which I guess is a coil tap wire for the humbucker, and that does not look factory to me. What I think was happening is, at some point down the line, somebody was having an issue with this guitar, or maybe they had a different humbucker in here at one point and didn't know how to put it back together, and they just hot wired the humbucker in to make sound. So when I was playing around with the sounds, I could never make the guitar not make sound. I thought that it had no volume control because the way this is wired right now, it has no volume with the signal being read directly off the humbucker. So it's just an odd deal. I'm going to redo it all, so I'm not going to document this too much. I think, gosh, I think what I'm going to do is I'll either do one volume control for everything, or I'll do the original setup, but I'll have to make that call later. If I do 2 tone controls, then I can do a different cap value on the single coil tone versus the humbucker tone. May try something like that, which I haven't done too much of. We'll just have to see. But all these pots are the same style pot. They're sort of alpha, full-size audio taper pots, and the switch wiring is really simple. I've taken some pictures of this already for myself, but you know, if you're doing this at home, you may want to draw a picture as well. Of course, when you get stuck with stuff like this, it's not right. That doesn't help you, but anyway. Well, I'm going to unsolder some of these connections and just rip this stuff out. I want to get the pickups out of the front anyway, so I can do a little bit of polishing. I'm not going nuts on this guitar. This thing's cheap, but anyway, that's where we are. We start on that unsoldering, desoldering. Is it unsoldering or desoldering? Who knows? Let's get this jack out of here first. Ooh, that stinks. That is not meant to have that much solder on it. Man. Whoever did that, I'm thankful that I'm left with a lot of lead on that humbucker wire. I want to reuse that humbucker. Because, man, that was not installed correctly. I don't like this concept of using a rigid wire, unshielded, it's just a bare piece of metal. But I don't like the concept of using that for a bridge wire, bridge ground. I'd much prefer to see a wire, a shielded wire, or it doesn't have to be shielded, but just a covered wire going from here to like a lug inside the cavity here, and then all the ground's wired to that lug. Either that or everything can be wired to one pot, which is an okay, or grounded to one pot, which is an okay setup as well. I might just cut this. Yeah, I was worried about that. It splashed me. Yeah, I got splashed and I'm going to end up cutting it anyway. Humbucker's free. It should be the neck pickup. Bridge, middle pickup. Man, they use some really noxious rosin in there. Oof. Okay, I don't like the bridge wire, so I'm cutting it. Figure that out later. But now I'm free. I can take the pots and the switches out all as one unit. I can pull my wires for my humbuckers back out the front, so this will allow me to complete my disassembly. Wow, that's a strange humbucker. It's completely sealed. It's got bar magnets, or I should say bars, like rails, and then it's got an actual bar magnet in the back, which is typical. Then it's got like this, not wax spotting, but it's got some kind of seal. It's actually kind of a cool, I don't know, maybe kind of like a non-active EMG style design or something, but who knows. It's cool. These single coils are direct mounted. When you mount your pickup straight into the wood, that's called direct mounting. So when I lift this up, there should be some kind of a spacer, probably like a sponge underneath, that gives pressure back between the body and the pickup to the height springs. No, there's not. It's, well, no, there are. There are springs on these pickups. That's a new one. All right. All right. Take these nuts off for the switches. Sometimes when I do this, I'll use a socket, but since there's washers there and everything's hidden by knobs on these, and really, you know, I'm not too concerned about the switches here, but I'll just use a crescent wrench to take off the nut. Alright, well that's all my wiring out. There's only one more thing I could do, which is the tremolo claw, and I'm not really going to do that. I am going to take this bridge wire off the tremolo, but that's pretty minor. I thought I'd go ahead and at least roughly install the new nut. I'm not going to cut it yet, but I just want to get it in the slot. And I haven't shown that installation before, so might as well. I ordered a new bone nut. I think I mentioned before that your critical measurements are the width across the neck and the depth or width of this slot. The height is not so critical as long as you get one that's tall enough to work with, and this one's going to be plenty tall when we get it installed. So this nut fits pretty tightly. I cleaned out this slot with a small scraping tool, razor blade, and a little bit of sandpaper, just a combination of things. I got it all clean. They make nut slot files that you can get. It's up to you if you want to buy those tools, but I don't do this enough to do that. You can get by with pretty simple stuff if you're just doing a replacement. And I'm not cutting a slot, I'm just cleaning up an old one. So when you install a nut, you don't want to use a ton of glue because you need to be able to remove the nut once it needs replacement. And you remember how much trouble I had getting this one out because someone glued the heck out of the last one in here. So I'm not going to be that guy again. All I usually do is a couple of drops of super glue, just one on each side. There's one and two. Then I'll flip it over. Get it started in the slot. And then I'll just give it some light taps with a really soft hammer. And double check that my edges are not sticking out too much. And then I'll probably try to clamp this in just to get rid of that tiny little gap there. I did check the bottom of this slot and the bottom of this nut are curved. I guess just being a little bit irregular because of the previous nut replacement and nut removals. It's just got a little bit of space. And that's not any problem to take up, and I can actually wick just a little bit of super glue in that just to fill up that end space. So the Harmony has lots of little scratches like this, and I don't usually care too much about those on an inexpensive guitar, but I do want to try to mask them as much as possible. And I hate leaving stuff that's just right here on the face exposed like that. So I'm trying out a new fix for that I actually haven't tried before, but I kind of just guessed it would work. But that is to use a nail polish to fix it. And I found a nail polish that really closely resembles the color of the paint. And this stuff was like really cheap. I think it was $5 or something like that, which, you know, you can hardly even buy model paint for that these days. So I've got all kinds of little touch-ups to take care of, and I tried several out on the back first, and the color matches really well. And this stuff is actually, I think, some form of lacquer. It's definitely got nitrocellulose as one of the main ingredients. So I don't know, it dries pretty quick, dries hard, and it's compatible with the paint, you know, so far. So what I'll do is I'm gonna fill in this divot, and then I'll try this out on the back first, but I think what I'll do is I'll fill in these divots and sand just a little bit to try to level it as best I can. And then hopefully the final polish that I do on this whole guitar will take care of most of it. I haven't really even begun a cleanup on this thing yet, other than just a wipe down. But yeah, well, here's the process of this. These things come with a brush already inside the bottle, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel and try to spray this stuff. I'm just going to follow the instructions. And I'm just going to try to fill in this divot and just barely get up to the edge. And that's pretty much it. So that's standing pretty well proud of the surface right now. I've done this before. This will dry and obviously recede. the edges will remain a little bit higher than the rest of it. And then what it tells you to do on the bottle is give it 2 coats. And so I've been giving it 2 to 3, but you know, concentrating more on the middle each time these dry, because when I sand it, I'll feather the edge. And you know, the best thing about this is it's not a total repaint, and if I sand a little too far and scuff something else, you know, this paint job's kind of shot already, so I'm not really doing any harm. I can always touch it up again with my paint and just keep on trucking, keep repeating the same thing. So anyway, I've got a bunch of these little ones to fix up. I just wanted to show the process on one. After doing a little touch-up, I always like to test and see if the paint that I used, especially when it's a new paint like the nail polish, but if the paint that I used will stand up to sanding. So I've got a spot that's in a cavity cover here that I'm just going to test first before I attack any of the other spots that I've touched up. If all of it, I mean, if it stands up to sanding okay, then I'll go and sand each one of the other areas that I've touched up on the guitar and try to blend them a little better. But if it doesn't, I'll just leave them the way they are. They do look better than bare wood, but they also look like a touch-up, and I kind of hate that. Anyway, so I've used this strip sanding technique before. Basically what I do is I'll take sandpaper and I'll cut it into a strip that's like a ½ an inch or so wide and, you know, a few inches long, and I'll just use that to direct all the sanding to that one particular spot using my finger and a pulling action under that. So basically just lay it down on top of the repair and pull it across, and you try to vary your directions, and what you should see is the haze starting to appear on the finish that's just directly under your finger. And you can move your finger around and vary the pressure. You're not pushing down very hard, you're really just holding the sandpaper to the surface, and you want to pull up with a little bit of an angle, just because if you drag down you're going to scratch more of your surface. Now you probably wonder, why don't I just sand the whole thing? If this was out in the middle of the body somewhere, I would not want to damage the finish around that little spot, and if I directed all my attention to that one spot and then level everything later, it's just going to save me from having to sand too much of the surrounding finish. So that's the basics. I can tell right now this is going to hold up to sanding fine, but I don't have enough paint in this spot, so I'm going to have to give that another coat. So I'll just go back over all of the spots on the guitar that I touched up, give them another coat, and continue this process. I did a quick tip on this recently, but I'm starting to work on the neck, and I just wanted to check the radius. Just got these tools, they're kind of cool. They're like these are understring radius gauges, but I obviously don't have strings, so it's not a big deal to me. And I have a set of notched ones too that can actually go over the strings, but no need for that. I can use these full contact ones. Basically, all you do is lay them on top of the fretboard, and they come in varying degrees. These are 10 and 12 because I suspect that's what this is. It does indeed look like it's a 10. If you want to verify that, you can take a little flashlight and shine a light behind the tool, and if any light escapes from under it, you check it in a couple spots, obviously, because fretboards can get a little irregular. But if any light escapes under it, you know you have the wrong size. On a size that's too big, where you'll see the light is like on the edges, and if you have a size that's too small, here's a 7 1/4. The light comes through the middle. I think you can see that. So anyway, that's the deal. I think I've got a 10 here. I'm going to give the neck fretboard a little love now. It looks extremely neglected. And it's got paint marks or something in it. Probably somebody was painting their house and left the guitar. I don't know, maybe they were painting the ceiling and left the guitar under it, something like that. But let me just get in here with some steel wool and some lemon oil and get into the fretboard. Try to get it to release some of the greases that are in it, and we'll see what happens. So I use this Formby's lemon oil. Like I've said in other videos, I've had this bottle forever, and I think the company's been purchased by Minwax, so if you're looking for it in the store, that's probably where they sell it. So lemon oil is a really good option for fretboards because it soaks in and protects the wood, but it doesn't really dry to any kind of a finish. And it also doesn't stay wet and sticky or anything like that. It just almost just like disappears. It's actually kind of cool. But what I'll do is let this soak in for just a moment, and then I'll go in here and scrub some of these really gross areas. In between the frets. I'm trying to avoid the frets. And then I just want to test and see if there's any dirt coming out of here. So I'll use a white towel. Yeah. Ooh. So I'll continue to do this until this comes out much cleaner. And it may take me several passes and a lot of time to let the wood soak in the oil and let the oils bring up some of the dirt. It's unbelievable the difference in this thing after cleaning. I wish I had a before and after photo, but I'm assuming you'll see that in the video. It's just crazy, and the best thing about it is just there's no more dirty, nasty brown stuff coming out after all that essentially sanding and scraping. Although it was it's very fine steel wool that you use, and you have to go in the direction of the grain, and sometimes that makes things take a little bit of extra time just because there's not much actual sanding going on, but it sure is good at cleaning, and I think the oil helps raise the dirt and break up any of the human element, because that's all oil from your fingers and stuff that gets down into the wood. Looks much better. I'm just going to keep going here. I need to fill one extra hole that's in the back of the headstock. I might not bother with it, but there is a crack that's starting to form around it, so I just want to make sure that's shored up before I start drilling any new holes for the new tuners, because the new tuners actually have a support stand that it's a diagonal one. It's on the opposite side of the original hole for the stud, but it's really close to this one. So I just want to fill that before I get to mounting those. So I've done this trick several times. Basically, I'm just going to use a toothpick and some wood glue, and what you want to do is drill a hole that's basically the same size as the toothpick. If you want to get precise, like me, get yourself a set of gauges, micro measurement tool here, micrometer. Measure the dowel or the toothpick, and this one is 0.08 7. Look up, get yourself a set of numbered drill bits. Look up on a numbered drill bit chart something that's slightly bigger than 0.087. And I'm going to try using a 43 drill bit, which is 0.089. That's a little tight, but we'll see how it works. Then I've already mounted my 43 drill bit in my drill. I've set a depth stop with some tape. That's very important. You don't want to go through the face of the peg head here. And then what we're doing is basically cleaning out the old hole, maybe slightly widening it. Okay, so yeah, that's going to work fine. So now all that's left is to glue it in. This will do two things. This will strengthen the wood around that little crack that's going on, and it will give me something solid to drill into in case my new hole overlaps it. So just get yourself some glue. Don't need a ton for one tiny hole. That's way more than I needed. Roll the toothpick in the glue and try to get a drop down into that hole if you can. Just helps with the adhesion. And then get it started. Sometimes you need a little persuasion. Alright, that's in there. And we just clean up some excess. And then later on when this dries, I'll cut it off with a razor blade, and I will drop fill the hole with a little bit of super glue to seal the end grain of the wood that's exposed, and then I will level it with a razor blade and call it quits. I'm ready to re-drill at that point for the new tuners. So I've done this in many other videos. If you haven't been watching my other series, obviously I recommend them, but they have this tip in a lot of those as well. And I have a quick tip video out on this too, so be sure to check those out. I had a video lined up where I was going to show the installation of the tuners, and then my camera didn't record it, so, well, I shouldn't say that. It did record, but it's in slow-mo and it's unintelligible, so never mind. The way that you install these is nothing special. So these screw in from the back, but you actually don't want to start there. What I like to do is put them in, tighten them down with a socket wrench or something, nothing crazy, but get them taut enough so that they don't move around, and then flip your headstock over and line up the bottoms of them with a straight edge. I've used a ruler before. I've got this like diamond sharpening stone. It's just the right width for doing all 6 tuners at once, and I've used that on several little jobs. But anyway, you just line up the bottoms, get them exactly where you want them. Of course, obviously it's a two-handed thing, right? You've got to line up the bottom and then tighten the nut on the other side at the same time. I wish I could have shown you the original, but such is life. And then when you get them all lined up, even with the best straight edge in the world, the bottoms of these tuners aren't exactly completely flat because there's parts sticking out of them. So you still have to eyeball and line them up and kind of jiggle them around and make sure that the space in between each one looks right to the eye, and do that with your buttons turned this way instead of this way, or every which way, and that will help you see the space better. And then when you get them to the point where they're tight and in place, all you've got to do at that point is drill the holes for the screws. Now, then you could use a center punch to punch them all out to kind of get your drill bit started, but I chose not to do that. I was using a 5/64 bit with a depth stop made of tape. I've done this in videos before where you've seen me make a little depth stop, but I just make a little shoulder with a piece of tape that keeps me from going into the headstock too far and coming out the other side. So once that's done, just put the screws in, screw them in, nothing to it. It just, I don't know, it looks a lot better with these tuners on there, even though they're not super expensive tuners. They're a matching set, so, and they're not scratched up and all the other stuff that was going on with the other tuners. I will do a little bit of touch-ups to the headstock. I've got a paint pen that I use for that, and I'll kind of go around the edge and just make sure that all these little dings and things, especially that one there on the end, are taken care of. This is not the end of the video series, but this is the end of the video. If you guys like this channel and you want to see more of these, be sure to subscribe. It'll make sure that you get all the videos in this playlist. Doesn't cost you anything, obviously. Or, you know, at least like the video and leave a comment. If you do any of those things, it helps me generate some traffic to the site and keep these videos going. So, thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys on the next one.